Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, Wrestling Unscripted. I am your host, well, one of your hosts, the legend J Mac. As always, I'm here with the red, white, and bruised Uncle Slam.
What's up?
And as always, the First Lady of Podcast Wrestling, the Viperess.
Hi, everyone.
Today we are going to discuss probably, I'd say, the most prolific man in the
Business.
business.
Whole industry.
I mean, I don't think there's ever been another man like him. I mean, he's sports entertainment or wrestling. You know, he's synonymous with both, and we're talking about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. McMahon was born in 1945 and is the third generation of a wrestling family. His father, Vince McMahon Sr., was also a wrestling promoter, and his grandfather, Jess McMahon, was a boxing and wrestling promoter. I did not know that. He co-founded the WWE with his wife, Linda McMahon, and they transformed it from a regional wrestling promotion to a global entertainment giant. McMahon is known for his unique and effective promotional style, which helped make wrestling a mainstream entertainment. His on-screen character, Mr. McMahon, has appeared on-screen in the WWE playing the character of Mr. McMahon in a controversial and often villainous character, which we all know, the Stone Cold Mr. McMahon saga. That was the Attitude Era. He built the WWE into a multi-billion-dollar company, making him one of the most successful figures in wrestling history. And I'm sorry, I would have to say in just business history, period.
That's true, too. I agree with that.
And we'll touch on that, too, because it's crazy what he did. But that he's not without his controversies. McMahon has faced controversies and accusations throughout his career, including allegations of sexual misconduct, which ultimately led to his separation from the WWE in 2023. Despite his controversies, McMahon's impact on the wrestling industry is undeniable, having helped shape the modern form of wrestling. With that, guys, let's get into it, because I am so torn on Vince McMahon. We were discussing it earlier off mic and stuff, that it's like there was two people. It's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
It's the real life Mr. McMahon and then Vince Kennedy McMahon. Like, I mean, there really is. I mean, there's a little bit of each one, but they're actually. It's almost like there's two separate people. I mean, you got the Vince they talk about as a father figure, and he was always like a dad to me, and he taught me so much, and you know, he's got his kids working with him, and there's the stories of him, you know, helping people, you know, who had cancer, and you know, he paid all the bills for my wife. But then you get the other side of Vince, where it's like about, you know, he was proud to tell Playboy that he cheated on his wife, that he, you know, had affairs, that he had sexual urges, that he had to take care of. And
Genetic jackhammer.
You know, I mean, a man that supposedly, you know, there was a little, you know, the ring boy controversy, the petter, you know, who let that go on, who had these people working for him that, you know, who...
The newly surfacing Roddy Piper controversy. Have you seen anything about that?
No, I haven't checked that out.
Man. We'll get into that too.
But, you know, it's the guy who is the father of wrestling, who, you know, gave a million people jobs. He basically rewrote the way the industry was even made. He, you know, he was a visionary. But at the same time, he's accused of paying more money for, you know, for hush money to pay the women for sexual assault, or for, you know, not getting, you know, NDA than he did for WCW. I mean, damn, $12 million to women and $3 million for the WCW.
I wonder sometimes. I agree with you, and I'm sure you'll want to touch on this, Vipers, because I wonder how much, like you said, the hush money and stuff played into, I believe her name was Ashley Morrow's
Yeah.
suicide.
Yeah.
Because
They
it-
put a lot into it, actually.
I think it did, because I mean she was just, I think she was embarrassed and everything, and her whole career was taken from her just because she didn't want to do something that she didn't want to do with an old man.
Right.
I mean, I'll let you take that one, because
Okay, this is probably where everybody's gonna hate me.
Um,
I'm just gonna say it.
it's unscripted.
And me being a woman, and I'm allowed to my opinion. Everybody else is allowed to their own opinion. If you've been paid to be hushed, that's the whole point, right? To not look back, to not say anything, not nothing. I think that it's a little odd that it's all coming up after everybody's been paid off. And then at the same time, I've been through things in my life too, so I get how some of them have felt in those situations. But if you feel the need to take hush money and not pursue legal action, I don't think that you should have the right to bring it up later on in life, if that makes sense.
You have to take on the responsibility of what you agreed to,
Yeah.
whether right, wrong, or indifferent.
no matter
with
what action
happened.
it was.
I hate
back
to
then.
say that.
I do too.
I see
hate
what you're
that.
saying.
I hate
It doesn't
that too, as
justify what was done.
It doesn't justify what was done, no, but I don't know. It's a really weird
It's a
line for
slippery
me,
slope.
especially as a woman. It's a weird line. I hate the situation for the women, but at the same time,
And it was
it's a
crazy.
gray area, man.
And it is, because that's the thing. It wasn't just women that he put into those situations.
That's true. You have the ring boy scandal,
Right. I mean,
which
not
he
only-
didn't
yeah.
really have anything to do with, but it just
But he
seemed like
allowed
he
those people-
allowed it to happen.
Vince knew everything
Look
that
the
went
other way,
on
we'll
Yes.
say that.
in his company,
Yes, he did.
and plus you got your right hand man, Pat Patterson, who which I don't care that he was openly gay. I mean that's his
It has
business.
nothing to do with
He
that.
got his name honestly.
Yeah, legend. No, I'm not even going to say anything about that. I'm just going.
God.
I'm going to leave that there. But I do think that he knew what was going on, and like
look
he's
the other
always
way.
said before, unless it had affected business, he didn't. The business over everything, and bringing that up was definitely going to affect business. So I think he may have maybe not seen anything, but knew about it and kind of hushed it up, thinking it would go away, and didn't know it was going to be a bigger scandal than it was. And then once it was blown up, he had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And he did. What did he get rid of? 6 or 7 executives or something like that. And he got rid of Pat, but then he brought him back because he thought it was a witch hunt, which I don't.
Well, he said that Pat was the only one that was ever innocent in the entire, ring boy scandal in the first place.
Well,
He said he was the only one that wasn't.
And see,
guilty.
that's what I was wanting to bring up too about the Roddy Piper thing. Is I don't know if you all have seen the interview, but there's
No.
an interview with Roddy Piper from years ago. I can't remember the guy's name. He used to do all kinds of sit down interviews with. He's done with RVD, Nash. I want to say his name's Chris. He's all over Facebook and social media and stuff with his interviews, but. In the interview, Roddy's talking about Pat Patterson. And people forget that Roddy entered the business really young. He was like 15.
Whoa. Like, is that even legal? Like, could you...
Man, Roddy was on his own when he was like 13. You should really look up Roddy Piper's story. He's not even Canadian, or he's not even Scottish. He's Canadian. He was raised on an Indian reservation in like Ottawa.
Well, I didn't think he was
Yeah.
Irish or Scottish anyway.
He
to start
li- but
with.
he-
I
he-
thought he was American, to be honest.
He did know how to play the bagpipes and stuff and everything. He learned how to do it and everything. I can't remember why or what it was that came to be that he learned. But when he got into the business, Terry Gordy got into the business when he was like 15 years old too. Terry Bam Bam Gordy. But when he got in and everything, he was really young and naive when he first started working for the WWE. I think like his first go around, something like that. I'm not exactly sure of all the details. The interview's very you can tell he didn't want to say too much. He wanted to say something, but he didn't want to say too much because he didn't want to hurt anybody. I don't think Roddy Piper, I don't feel like was the guy that everybody's seen on TV. But I think he was the guy that everybody's seen on TV at the same time. He was the Rowdy Scott, but he was just an open, honest, humble man. You know what I'm saying? From everything that he had went through in his life, he had done a lot of stuff too. I didn't realize he was the partier he was with Ric Flair back in the day too. But I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get into a Rowdy Piper biography here. But when he was in the WWE, he starts talking about Pat Patterson doing something, and it got real uncomfortable.
Like doing,
And
I mean,
he didn't go into detail. He said, but it made him really uncomfortable after that for a while, and it made him question a lot of things, which leads me to believe what happened. You know, what did he do to him?
Mm.
You know, even what's his name? I don't want to call him by the name that I'm thinking of because it was ridiculous and they should have never put him in that gimmick. But Tony Atlas. I was trying to think of his actual name. I'm not going to call him Saba Simba because that was stupid. That was just, I'm sorry, there was just so many racial undertones in that time of wrestling. It was horrible.
Yeah.
But even Tony Atlas said that Pat Patterson was known for a quote.
Grabbing him, yes.
I'm going to quote him. He grabbed my pecker.
Yeah, he did say that quote.
He grabbed my pecker.
That was the quote, yeah.
Pat Patterson grabbed my pecker is what he said. I'll say it again. And that's what I'm saying. It just, like you said, you can't know that stuff's going on in your locker rooms.
No.
And not do something about it unless you're just worried about the almighty dollar, which again plays into the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Well, that was his right-hand man. I mean, Pat was his right-hand man.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, like, and his best friend. It wasn't just, because...
Well, what if he just didn't want to see that? He can't be everywhere at the same time.
No, but I think somebody, like, if you spend that much time with
That's
people...
true, too.
There were enough people complaining.
Absolutely.
And like Tony Atlas said, who you going to complain to?
Yeah.
He's the booker.
Yeah.
He's the second rank at that time.
Yeah, number 2 guy. Yeah. So, if you complain, you were going home and shit.
He's just not going to book you. Is all it is. It's just, it's like, I don't know. It's so sad, too, because there's, even getting up to the sexual scandals that are going on now, which caused him to have to leave back in 2023. It's so sad that all that has to overshadow such a great empire that was built. Because, like we said, he's third generation. His grandfather was a boxing and wrestling promoter. His dad was the WWF owner, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, for all you old heads, as the young people called us. But and then to take it from his dad and for like $1 million, and then build it to what it was, to have all that overshadowed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'll definitely taint his legacy, but honestly, like, I'm not even kind of surprised because with great men like that, you know what I'm saying, there's always
some kind of controversy.
There's another side that that a lot of people don't see. That
it's the truth.
Because to be that focused, to be that driven in one aspect of your life, you're going to be that way, and probably the rest of your life too, whether it comes with money and power, and being, because Vince ran that world. It was his world. He controlled everything. Like, if you got paid, if you worked, if you went home or not, like, so, and there was nobody else you would have, complain to, and the loyalty people had from him. I mean, you saw how many times Hogan snitched for him. Yeah. Where there was a TV interview, when Jesse the Body was trying to get a union formed and shit. He's the first person running back. Vince, guess what's happening? Oh, hey, Vince, they're getting ready to do this. Hey, Vince, guess what?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I mean, The Undertaker even said he would have taken a bullet for the guy and was tearing up over it. Yeah. I mean, this is the same man, but at the same instance, he is all these stories about, trafficking women and making them do this and making them do that, and, like...
Well, apparently all that was dismissed in court, so we're not
dismissed.
supposed to bring that up. But, I mean, come on, something's happened.
Things happened. They did. They just did.
But to me, it's just more of the question of, at this point, because the hush money's been paid, the NDAs have been signed. At this point, it's just who was involved and to what extent did it go? Were you harming people?
And I believe some of it was consensual, but at the same time, you can't have a regular relationship when you're sleeping with your boss, because there's that power dynamic.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because they always will have the power. Like, you're always going to have to do it. So like, there is no equality. You can't have a balance.
Well, look at that Ashley girl. She
But-
didn't do what he wanted, and he took the Diva Championship from her.
Trish Stratus, same
He
thing.
did the same thing
she
to
was
Trish
supposed.
Stratus. Trish said no, she didn't want to make out with a girl like the previous week, and then next week,
She lost it to
Mickey James.
Yep. So
Yes.
I mean, obviously, there's a pattern of Vince being very retaliatory towards
Yes.
people or whatever.
And I mean, to be fair, I'm going to be totally fair in that. I'm not going to say it was necessarily for sexual favors. Who knows? There's rumors. But he was retaliatory to men, too, to be fair.
Yes.
May have been for different reasons. I don't know. Like I said, there's rumors that certain wrestlers and Vince
Well,
had fun together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care.
like
if they did it consensual, I don't care. It's their business.
Right.
I wouldn't even be surprised, like I said, because that kind of like, I hate to use prison as an example, but that in itself is like its own world,
Mhm.
like within a world and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
They have their own kind of rules. They live differently than everybody. They spend more time together than, you're on the road, 300 or 200 plus days a year and stuff. You spend a lot of time with these people. You see them more than you do your own family. So there is a sense of like, this is our world. This is how we lead it or whatever. But also, I mean, like, damn, like when I heard about, like all the allegations of all the sexual stuff, and this is just the shit we know about. So like, we just know about this. There's a lot
Just
more
what we
that,
know about, then what we don't know about.
that definitely, that's probably went on. And like, then you hear the history of abuse to Vince too. That's why I said there's like a double side. It's like you hear he's been sexually abused, but then there's rumors that his own mother sexually abused him. And that he was, of course, beat by his stepfather that he hated, that he wished he could kill and shit.
Right. That's why he went to live with his dad.
Which I don't justify that. And his own dad didn't even show up till he was 12 years old.
Right. So it all plays in. He had a jacked up childhood. It just.
But that doesn't justify
No,
anything
no.
that he does
obviously.
later on.
It's like I
Like-
said, it's just sad that all that is coming to surface, and it's overshadowing.
all the good he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, because you got to think. I mean, wrestling before was what, a regional promotion. Everybody had their
territories.
little territories. Everybody had their little area. And when he came in, he was like, "No, I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. I'm gonna go in your territory. I'm gonna take your best talent. I'm gonna take your best star. I'm going to pull him to mine because I'm going to pay him more money." He started getting wrestling syndicated, where it was coming on television more, where it just wasn't like a late night thing. Then he started WrestleMania, which obviously became the Super Bowl of wrestling. And then to incorporate, MTV, cartoons, music. I mean, hell, like they even have their own record label.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like at one point Vince was doing what? Of course, bodybuilding, which was he did it the worst time possible, the whole steroid era. Obviously, that's not really,
right at the height.
But I mean, and the XFL, which those two can't. I really wouldn't brag too much about none of that shit.
But you can't blame him for trying.
But yeah, he's a businessman. He takes chances, and he puts his whole heart into everything he does when it comes to that. But when people remember him, they're not going to remember all that. They're going to look back and say, "Damn, he did some fucked up shit," or I mean that. Which I understand, like back then, it was they had the fans, they had their own little what's it called? I would say not prostitutes, but like groupies, I guess would be the best way to put it, or like something like that. But
so let me ask you this, Vipers: do you think that because of all that controversy would be a reason for TKO to again want to, with John Cena, in the lineage of that championship and try to write their own lineage and say this is a new era that's not under anything Vince McMahon did. No offense, we thank you for putting this here so that we could buy it, but we're going to we're gonna write our own from here.
I kind of feel like they're trying to erase history.
I feel like that too. But do you think that could be
If that's their way they're going, I get it.
right? I do
I
too.
completely understand that you need to try to separate yourself from whatever issue or political problems.
Especially
We'll
in this
say it
day
like
and
that
age.
in this day and age because everybody gets butthurt over the littlest things nowadays. So you literally have to watch your P's and Q's on what you say and what you do.
You do, and I mean you should, to an extent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no need to be insensitive.
Right.
You know
I
what
agree.
I'm saying? Everybody's entitled to an opinion. Everybody's entitled to be able to think what they want. And as much as I hate to say it, as much as some things people don't want to hear and we don't need to hear, unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
People are entitled to say it, but
I
it's
don't
like-
think that there's going to be a time where we don't say the McMahon name.
But that's the thing with it. Like you said, it's such a fine line
Mm-hmm.
that they have to walk nowadays. You know what I'm saying? So that it's not offensive
But it's
and
still
entertaining.
entertaining, yeah.
And
But like when you're a public traded company
yes,
and you
You
have
have-
sponsors,
you have a
you have to do
responsibility.
that because
So
you have to.
separate yourself from that.
Because if not, then you're going to lose money, and
Mhm.
that's not what you're in here
Oh,
for,
yeah.
or whatever. And
So do you think that would be a cause for them to want to get away from that
Sure thing.
lineage?
Sure.
I don't.
I feel like they've changed the image a little bit since Triple H just took over.
I think they've changed it some, but I don't associate Vince McMahon with that belt. Like when I think of the belt, like I think of all the champions that had it. Now, yes, he was one of the champions of the belt. You know what I'm saying?
David Arquette-ish.
But
Oh.
but I don't necessarily associate. You know, when I think of the belt, I think of Hogan. I think
Yeah.
of The Rock. I
Right.
See,
think
that's
of
what I'm saying. I don't see
the-
Vince with that.
like
I see
I'm-
your point.
now. Like if I think of wrestling,
I think of Vince.
I think
Yes.
of Vince because
Promotions.
Yes, yes.
WWE.
You know,
When I think of
WrestleMania.
WWE,
Yes.
I think of Vince.
yes,
When I
yes,
think
yes.
of the WWE Championship, I think of Bret Hart, Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I see what
Right.
you're saying.
Well, here, let me ask you this question. Do you think he's guilty? Like, do you think he's guilty? Like, do you think the allegations are true? That
If he didn't pay them off, something was guilty. I mean, if he had paid them off, he paid them money, something happened.
If you pay
Something happened.
somebody money.
If you are literally
I look
innocent,
at-
why would you
yes.
pay somebody off for nothing?
Right. If we're sitting here and I do something and I look at both of you all and I say, man, I'll give you all $20 to hush about it. I had to have done something
Right.
to want to offer, a millionaire I've never had a millionaire just walk up to me and say, hey, I got $3 million right here in this suitcase.
For you to
Just
be quiet.
sign this contract that says you'll never tell anybody I gave it to you.
But,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
something happens.
But knowing Vince and knowing what we know about him, because what do we know he loves more than anything? More than the kids, more
Money.
than like more than his family, more
His
wrestling.
Wrestling, yeah.
He's a workaholic. He loves wrestling.
What is it? He sleeps like 3 hours a night.
The business before anything.
Yeah.
Even if he hates somebody, if it's good
Yep.
for business, he will bring
Yep.
it back. So if something was going to destroy wrestling or take away from it, like the steroids, like the sexual assault, I think that he would be quick to be like, hey, let me throw some
Push
money
it
on
under
it.
the rug.
Especially when it's a drop in the bucket. Like when you're $1 billion person,
Right.
what the hell is $300,000? What the hell is $1 million? What's fucking $7.5 million?
Right.
But then you risk the chance of what's happening now. It comes out later
Well,
on.
eventually, what you do in the dark is going to come
Yes,
to light. I
true.
mean, that's just the way
That's the world works.
for the most part.
But the
And-
thing of it is the details aren't coming out. And that's what I'm wondering. Because
Nobody's
is
gonna
it
ever know.
is it right? And is it that he did something nefarious? Or is it that he just had an affair and told somebody, hey, I don't want nobody knowing that I'm cheating on Linda so that it hurts the stocks, and so here's $3
It's
million
the
just to
unknown.
hush. You see what I'm saying?
I think Linda's known. I think Linda's always
Oh,
known.
yeah, they don't care.
I think they have the whole Bill Hillary kind of relationship. We do what's best for business. We
Yes.
have our
It's a business marriage.
Right.
in front of everybody else. We're the perfect family, but behind closed doors, I know what you're doing, Vince. I'm going to do my thing.
You do your, yeah.
whatever it is, but don't let it affect business.
That's
Right.
it.
And that's where he fucked up.
It's affected
He let
business.
it affect business because it eventually came out. Secrets don't stay secrets, especially when money's involved. Because
Loose lips.
exactly, too many people knew about it and shit.
Yep.
And plus, if you're used to getting away with shit like that, then you keep doing it, and eventually you're gonna get caught. Like, I don't believe that
Big
any
head.
of that was the first that he ever did, and I don't think it was the last that he ever did and shit. Because if you know Vince, he's a very cocky person. Like, even when there was
He don't
scandal
care. You
about
catch him.
like, he'll put it on television. There was that thing about the tanning parlor stuff, or the massage parlor, whatever
Yep.
it was, and he made a skit about that. There was other
That's
things
what
that
was
he was
crazy to me.
that
he
he's
made
been
skits
He
out of
taunts
his
it.
life.
He taunts people.
exactly.
When you come at him, he's going to, and he knows, what I'm saying, especially if he
Crazy.
knows that he's, you can't
He's
get
got some
me.
balls. I'm
He's
just
going to
saying.
sit there and taunt you.
Did you see the interviews that he did with the with Tom Koskett and then the other one on that Netflix special when they pissed him off when they asked him about the I think the first one was like making fun of the XFL,
Yes.
and he got all in his face and was like,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
and then
I
the other
know
guy
that.
when he was talking about you're just trying to tear me down, and he was flipping his papers and he was like. I mean, very aggressive
Yes.
as far as
You can tell he has a short temper.
yeah. So
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. There's a very fine line between Vince Kennedy McMahon and
Mr.
Mr. McMahon,
McMahon,
the
yeah.
billionaire. There is
That-
a very
Like you said in
thin
another,
line there.
yes,
Very thin line.
like you said in that other episode that we recorded, part of your character, the best characters,
A little
come
piece of
from
you.
a piece of yourself.
Yeah.
So if Mr. McMahon can't be too far off
From that.
I don't
Vincent
think a lot.
Kennedy.
And plus, if we know the way he is, where he likes to taunt people and stuff, like you don't think some of them sketches he didn't do in private that he brought to real life because he thought it was hilarious to kind of taunt people or put in people's face and stuff.
Right.
I think some of that shit, he's like, hey, guess what I'm doing, and y'all have no idea. I mean, Vince is a ballsy guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
He has some
and
balls.
and you kind of have to be
in this kind of industry.
yes,
you
to be
do.
a leader in business like that.
Well, especially, and see, that's the thing. The industry has changed so much.
Mhm.
Because back when Vince first took over, people forget the industry was like the mob.
Mhm.
It was so Well, we were talking about Harley Race
Mhm.
Oh,
going to St. Louis and was going to shoot Hulk Hogan
yeah.
if he
Mhm.
showed up with the world
Yes.
title in his territory, and Hogan didn't know showed. I mean, there was a mob-like mentality
And it
to
wasn't,
protecting that business.
and plus it wasn't directed towards children. It was mostly like older guys, beer drinkers, blue collar workers. Like, it wasn't directed towards women or families.
Right.
At
Mhm.
that time, that didn't come much later till
Right.
till
It
they
wasn't
wanted to start.
entertainment. It
Yeah.
was wrestling.
It was pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling, right.
And then it
So it
changed.
was that fake stuff.
Yeah.
And
And then it changed because, like you said, Vince
quote unquote.
hated pro wrestling and became sports entertainment.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's where a lot of Vince came from, was just that mob mentality, and then the fact that he knew he just wanted to take everybody out. And I don't even think he wanted to take everybody out. I just think he wanted his product to be a worldwide product.
He liked the
Y'all
fight.
can have y'all's little territories.
He liked the
But I'm
fight.
still gonna have mine.
Like, if you saw the documentary and stuff, like he said, he, like, growing up, I liked fighting. I was good at it.
Yeah.
I like competition. Like, I expect to win when I do things or
Yep.
whatever.
Do
He's
you
like,
think that stems from his childhood where he was abused until he was
Yes.
like, what was it, 12?
I think a lot of it has to do with of trying to prove to his dad, because remember, like, he didn't really meet his father until he was 12, and he tried hard as hell to get his dad's approval. His dad didn't even say he loved him till
until
he was on
almost
his
deathbed.
on his
yeah.
deathbed. So that
Yeah,
kind of
so-
has a lot. I think he's like kind of like, and I think Shane's the same way. He's searching
Oh,
for that approval. He's searching for a dad to be proud of me, and
That's what bugged me so bad about watching that documentary.
the way to show it is by showing how well I can build this
Mhm.
empire, how well I can build this brand, how much money I can make. I mean, and it worked, honestly. I mean, like, he was so driven in competition that, like, he eat, slept, and breathed wrestling. I mean, like, above all anything, if like I said, and there's many wrestlers that quote him that the business is the most important.
Most important, yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. He will always choose the business over everything. And I think that's another reason why he stepped aside, because of his love for the business or whatever, is that he saw that, okay, if I stay here, it's going to mess with the product. It's going to make people not want to watch it. Because we all know, in this time and age, when you start talking about sexual assaults and stuff like that, then, that starts pulling on certain demographics and money gets funny. So he was like, hey, let me step away. Let me cash out. I mean, he's good as far as that. Now, I do feel like he will try to find a way to sneak back, whether it is start his own a different promotion or backdooring into the WWE or TKO. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I don't think this is the last we've seen of Vince.
Absolutely not.
Because he's too much of a competitor. Like I said, he just likes winning and shit, and like he expects to win. That's why he doesn't get excited about winning, because he feels like it's a natural thing. So
on to the next.
Yeah, so on to the next one or the next challenge.
He just expects
He
it.
gives himself a couple of seconds of and then it's okay. What's next?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's just like you said with WrestleMania. The second WrestleMania is over, boom, it's on to next year's WrestleMania. So let me ask you all this: do you all think that because of everything that's went on, do you all think that that's what? Well, one, do you? I'm pretty much positive that's what it is, but what do you all think about, is that why him and Shane don't have a relationship anymore? And do you think that that's why maybe all the controversy is why Stephanie's kind of backed herself away from everything? And
That's what
said,
bugs me about their whole relationship.
she's kind of like just an ambassador for
Right.
now, because like she's got her little talk show and everything now that's WWE produced. But you know what I'm
She's
saying?
got
She's
like
not
3
an
different shows currently.
yeah, she's
and a
not an
podcast.
executive
Oh,
or
I didn't
anything.
know
I
that.
mean, well, she gets an executive producer.
I don't know. That's what bugs me about the relationship, because you watched how, like, we've seen how Vince has grown up with his dad, and the way that he felt like he had to struggle to get that approval from him, and not getting it till close to the end, and then watching Shane also go through that exact same struggle. And like me as a mother, I've got 3 kids, and I'm just like, I cried watching the end of that documentary, because I'm just like, as a parent, how do you do that to your child? How can you not tell them that you're proud of you, and then doing all the things that Shane has done?
Well, there's the reports of him like grabbing that knife and giving it to him and telling him stab me in the heart or whatever.
Yes,
Like
It's
wow,
crazy.
Yeah.
Even the accounts from Shane are insane.
yeah, it's like I
That's
don't
why I'm
know.
saying there's such a fine line between what
Yes.
people think Vince Kennedy McMahon is, who Vince Kennedy McMahon is, and who Mr. McMahon is.
I feel like almost like his kids had to when we're at work, you approach me as Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the owner of WWE. If we're at home hanging out, hey, I'm Dad. You know, and I feel like like you said, he's all about business,
Which,
and I think that that's what it was he was the ultimate
yeah.
at being able to separate my relationship with you when it comes to business.
Yeah.
When we're in this building, I don't give a shit who you are. You
Yeah.
can go just as much as anybody else.
Exactly. And I think the relationship as far as kids, I think he treats his kids kind of like his dad treated him, except for not as harsh as far as like not showing up till 12. But his dad always put the business first, and he puts the business first.
Yeah.
And I think that Shane may be a little bit different. I don't think that Stephanie is as much, just because, her husband's in it and she is. But I know Shane took off for, a few years or whatever.
Well, now he's somewhat associated with
Yeah.
AEW.
Yeah. So, like, he's technically, slowly coming back into the business. But I think it's just like they say, I mean, like, you are like your parents. And he's like his parent, and just like his dad was for him, and just like his parent was before them.
I don't know. I think Shane's more family oriented than Vince.
I do
ever
too.
was
I think he's better. I think he's
at
still
juggling it
Yes.
yeah. But at the end of the day, I think he's still a McMahon,
at heart. Yeah.
and the need to prove something to your father is a huge drive to them.
What's
Right.
the old saying? Sins of the father.
Exactly.
Yeah, sins of the father / generational trauma. You know, it just.
Here's my question for you all. Do you think that if he didn't focus so solely on business being first and the company coming first, if he didn't do that and focus more on his family, do you think that the business would have went as far as it did?
We would still be talking about Monday Night Wars and WCW because he wouldn't have went for the throat.
I
He wouldn't if he was more of a family person.
Mm-hmm.
See, here's what I think. I think yes, there were times when Vince McMahon was a family man. But I think that 90% of the time he was working. And because of that, it allowed him to stomp on people's throat
Mm-hmm.
and say, I don't care if you've got families to feed. You tried to put me out of business, so you and anything associated with you is dead, and I'm going to kill it. And I'm even not even take ECW. Sitting here looking at the emblem, he brought back ECW.
Mm-hmm.
That was a clown show of what ECW was.
Was originally, yeah.
So did he do that to bring it back, or did he do that to make fun of it and say, look what I did? Look what he did with WCW with the invasion. That wasn't no invasion. That was we're gonna friggin' mollywop every friggin' WCW, ECW guy that you bring in.
I
The
think he,
only guy you're going to get is Stone Cold because he's going to turn bad and join Vince McMahon for no reason whatsoever. That was horrible.
I think he was
horribly
trying to
done.
recreate the whole Monday Night Wars
I
thing
know.
with that.
I think right there he was trying to show everybody, I bought it, watch me kill it right in front of your face. You're not just going to get one episode of me showing up, killing this. I'm going to kill it slowly.
So basically, you think he's
Maybe.
just kind of torturing them to
Yes.
like making a slow death instead of
Look
just
what he
being
did to
kind
the NWA.
But wouldn't that be like a waste of money?
No, not to him. Like he said, what he bought. I can't remember what he bought.
But he had problems paying people.
paid like $2-3 billion for
well,
WCW.
he did before the Monday Night Wars really started.
Okay.
When Brett, because he gave Brett like a lifetime contract.
Yeah, it was a 20-year
20
contract.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much lifetime
Right.
for Brett because he was like 40 at the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
So he gave him pretty much a lifetime contract, and it was a lucrative. I think it was like $24 million, something like
Yeah,
that.
it was.
It's like $1 million a year, or something
Yeah.
like that. And that's why they were kicking his butt, and he couldn't pay them. So that's why he let him go. But when he let him go, and then that man right there, Stone Cold, showed up, that flipped the script, and everybody started watching. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
but what also flipped the script too was Eric Bischoff giving away the endings. So
That's what was crazy to me. I didn't even know that because I didn't
Yeah.
watch it back then. And when I went and found out that Eric Bischoff was giving the results
That
to a
should
show
put
that
asses
hadn't even
in the
released
seat.
yet.
Mick Foley's a guy who used to wrestle here is Cactus Jack. He said he's gonna win their world title tonight. That should put asses in the seat.
That's
I know
insane to me.
from a fan's perspective, I stopped watching Monday Nitro right then and there because I flipped my happy ass over. It didn't put my ass in the seat, but it gave them some Nielsen ratings.
Mhm.
I'm just saying I think Vince was he didn't care how much, because he didn't really spend that much money to buy WCW.
No,
Yeah, I
think
want
it
to say it was less than like
4
$5
billion.
million.
4 million or 4 billion. It was
Million.
4.
It was
Million.
million. Yeah.
It was 4
It
million.
was
then.
single digits in the
Yeah,
millions. Yeah.
and it like so at that time, because that was right at the peak of the Attitude Era,
Mhm.
transitioning over into the Ruthless Aggression Era. So he was making money hand over fist.
Oh yeah, 10 times over.
Yeah, so I don't think it was an issue about the money. I think it was just his ego saying,
Might
And,
have
and,
been.
and I don't think he would have done it, honestly and truthfully. Do you know, honestly and truthfully, what I think done it?
What?
Eric Bischoff going, I think it was Eric Bischoff, don't quote me on that, but somebody from WCW, I think it was Eric Bischoff, said, we're trying to put them out of business.
Mm.
When they said that, it was personal to Vince because this is my dad's, this is my grandfather's, and this is my family's business. Granted, it may have been one of those 10% times when that family value type stuff kicked in, and he was like, no, you're not doing this. This is a McMahon thing. We built this.
Right.
You're not killing this. If anybody kills it, we kill it.
I don't know. Like I said, like part of me agrees with you, but the whole it's a family. I feel that, but it's also like a global empire and shit that's been crushing all these little people in the process. So when he comes at me with, "Oh, we're just a little family-owned company against this billionaire,"
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I don't feel as much sympathy towards them because I know they crushed a lot of other little people and
But they
like
bought
in the
them
pro-
out. And did they give them a fair price for what they had?
Do you know
Here's the
Vince
thing.
McMahon? Like, do you know what type of man this is? Like, you really
Right.
think he was always like, "Here, man, I'm going to give you a good deal"? No, he's probably like, "I'm going to crush your ass. I'm going to take what you got."
I think if he could get what he could get for a good deal, he was going to take it, as any businessman would. But I've also heard a lot of people speak up and say he was pretty fair in his business dealings. You know what I'm saying? If you done right by him, he'd always done right. Look at Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash says, there's been personal issues about like Scott Hall getting let go the way he did and them using the alcohol in a storyline and stuff. But as far as like his business dealings, he's like, the old man always took care of me. Look, Undertaker,
Yeah.
Stone Cold.
I think if you were a favor, then yes, he took care of you. I think
if you made him
He
money.
did. He
yes,
picked-
yes,
He
yes.
picked and choose favorites.
he
Obviously.
took care of the ones that made him money.
And like I said, I'm not saying that he never, did anything nefarious to buy something or anything like that. But I don't think that it was an all the time thing because what's the need to say you buy somebody's little mom and pop promotion in, podunk nowhere, Ohio Valley. He owned Ohio Valley for a while. That used to be NXT and the
Yeah.
Performance Center, basically. So when he bought it, I've never heard any stories that he, was it was a bad business deal or anything like that. Or when he sold it, and it shouldn't have been sold for, it was, or anything like that. So I don't think it was always that it was that. I think what it was because nobody else ever went out in public and said, we're going to put you out of business. WCW did.
I think
And there was a war.
I think knowing McMahon, the way that people have talked about him, that he is a competitor and that he would do whatever it took, like a Michael Jordan. If he smells blood, he's going to go for it. And if he can get a better deal in a business deal, then he's going to take it, whatever it took.
Oh yeah.
Now I do think he did some fair deals to people, but I also think he probably did some shady ones.
He's a businessman.
But also look at him like I look at Walmart coming into a small town and crushing that little mom and pop shop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He comes in, shuts them down. They don't have a choice. And if you run everything as far as wrestling, who can you go to and complain to?
Right.
Who are you going to go to? The Wrestling Association and say what?
Wrestling
Vince
did not,
was mean to me? No,
Right.
you ain't going to do shit.
Wrestling did not get better because Vince bought WCW at all. Wrestling got stale.
Wrestling was good because of competition.
Yes.
Because of WCW, because they forced each other to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that was gone, you saw the drop off. Now it's starting to get better because there is more competition now, and that drives them to have to be better. They don't just be like, "Hey, we're the only people here. We're the only party. You have to come here."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now we have a little more choices as far as what to go to. But if it was left up to them, if you don't have any other choice, you're going to go with them, and Vince is the top. Now, to go back to your question, Viperous, about the whole family thing, I think Vince is, if he wasn't who he was, I don't think he could be the way it was, because with a lot of geniuses, you have to be a selfish person.
Right.
You know,
That
like
makes
you
sense.
have to be hyper focused, and on some of that you have to sacrifice too. And sometimes that comes at the hands of your family and friends. Like, you don't spend time, you don't go on vacation, you don't do things because you are such a focused individual, because you see what other people don't see. And I think that's kind of the way Vince was when it came to business and stuff, or the WWE as far as wrestling. Like, he was that person where he just be damned everything else. Like, I love my family. I'll, you know, if like if something happened, I'll go see them, but I'm not taking a vacation. And like, even
Right.
if I take a vacation, I'm still thinking business, like in the whole process.
I was gonna say, because I remember Vince saying at one on this documentary that he had went the last vacation he had went on. He came back with WrestleMania 1,
Yeah.
and that
That's
was the last
crazy.
vacation he had went on.
That
So
is
I'd be
crazy.
afraid to what I'd be interested to see what he'd
He's
come
a
up with on
workaholic.
another.
Well, I mean, and to those points, look at what he did, even performing. Well, I don't even. I think it was the Royal Rumble when Cena and Batista screwed up the ending, and they both flipped over the
Oh, yeah,
Oh, the ring.
ring
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
same time,
yeah.
and they hit the ground at the same
Uh-huh.
time, and they were trying to figure out in the ring, and he come power walking out there, got in the ring, and blew out both his
I remember
quads,
that. Yeah, I
and
remember
just
that.
set,
Yeah.
he didn't even sell it, man. I'm
No,
like,
he
how
went
do you
right
blow
through it.
your quads out and you're just sitting there acting like Mr. McMahon?
He
dude?
blew
I'm
him
over-
out before he got in the ring,
Well,
while
and
he
yeah,
was
it was-
walking
yeah, it was
down.
like-
That's the crazier part
yeah,
about that.
I was like, what the hell, man?
I guess he won't power walk
There's
so hard
Ted
next
Turner
time or
and
whatever.
Jane Fonda you was asking about.
Mhm.
That-
See, I knew that name too.
And guys, also in any of these episodes, when we're talking about things, if you all have questions and stuff, please feel free to leave comments, questions. We want to take those questions and like take show ideas and stuff that you all want to hear. Sorry, didn't mean to plug anything right in the middle of this, but
No, that's great.
we want this to be totally interactive. But I mean, as far as Vince goes, it's just he's done so much for the business, and it's like I said, you know, he took it from being just a little ragtag. Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily. Well, maybe it was. I mean, even in the early '80s, it was still considered kind of like a circus sideshow thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, he just made it something cool.
How do you think wrestling is going to be post Vince? Like, how do you? I mean, like, where do you think it's heading to? Like, do you think it's in a good place? Do you think it's in a good direction? Do
I think
you
it's in a
think
great
that
direction,
it's in
currently.
good hands as far as who's running it and the stories and the ideas?
I think it's in a great place, and I'll keep this quick so that you can answer it too, Vipers. But I think it's in a great place to the point to where I think Vince, and it's evident from past evidence in the 80s and stuff, that Vince did a lot of things to kill other promotions. As far as like TV deals and telling people you're not going to get my pay-per-views if you show this and that and everything else. So post Vince, I don't think there'll be any of that influence because everybody's wanting, you know, everybody wants to be involved in what's happening. Reality TV shows, you know, NBA, NFL, everybody wants to broadcast what's happening. Wrestling is kind of, you know, a semi, maybe stage B still what's happening, but it's starting to seep over into that A-list entertainment. You know, so it's like it's what's happening. Everybody wants a piece of it, kind of like with Roku getting the WoW and the NWA, which like again I am extremely excited
Yeah, I am
about
too.
because I love NWA. The NWA has by far my favorite championship belts ever. All of them. The World Television Championship is my favorite belt ever. The original, the Arn Anderson, I call it. But I mean, it's just, and with that happening, I don't think there'll be people like Vince to kill it because
Right.
there's room for
everybody to
everybody
grow.
in a streaming platform when you're on the internet. Everybody can be anything if you put a good enough product out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if the NWA and the NWA stuff, not trying to just focus on them because there's TNA, there's AEW. I don't watch a lot of AEW. I know AEW gets a lot of heat and everything, but the dude is a billionaire that just wanted to give somebody another company that wasn't WWE all the time. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not Vince McMahon. So why are we comparing Tony Khan to Vince McMahon? He's doing the best he can.
Well, he's trying to be wrestler. I mean, he's trying to be Vince.
He is. He's trying to
But
be.
there's only one Vince.
But and he's making his, and that's the thing. He's making his mistake because he's not hiring wrestling people around him that know what to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That at least he can be the final say, but have a few opinions around you that are, wrestling knowledgeable. And he did with Arn Anderson and stuff like that, but the problem is he let everybody come in and have creative control. Can't do that. But sorry, I didn't mean to get off into a rant, but I think it's going to be good. I think there's room for everybody to grow now to where it's not just WWE. But I'll let you
Nobody's
take it.
stopping it from being as big as it possibly can be. People that, normally wouldn't get looked at are being looked at now. Little shows are being looked at more now than they ever have been.
Do you think that the women's division is the future, since that seems to be the kind of like the forefront right now?
Yes.
Like, as far as headline, WrestleManias and having their own pay-per-view and actually, having a big portion of the show now, with tag teams, with the creation of the new belts and everything.
I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say I don't understand why we still have a women's division. Now, before anybody comes at me and before anybody gets the pitchforks and the torches,
You gotta do some explaining.
I don't understand why, with the depth of the roster and the fact that we've got so many women championships now, why do we not just separate it and let the women have their own show and let them do and a legit show, not like Glow and nothing like that. I'm not trying to throw shade on Glow or anything like that, but
personally, I think that it would wind up going, like, the women's would venture off into something that it shouldn't be.
You think it might go retro, go more sexual
Yes,
then?
I think, especially nowadays, in our society today, sex is everywhere.
I don't
it's worse
think
now
the
than it ever
women
has
would
been.
let it though. I think I think that they, especially if you do it right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying like keep everything separate. I'm just saying, like, instead of having 1 or 2 matches a night of the women, why don't we just let the women have their own Monday Night Raw? Not necessarily Monday Night Raw, but why don't we just let them have their own show to where all the women can get displayed through the entire night, and then what's going on, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to like separate things, but I'm trying to say I think there's enough of them out there to where we're not showcasing enough. They need to have something, a platform to where they can show that they're, can carry a show.
I can say eventually, I would see that happening.
Look what they did with the pay-per-view. The women's pay-per-view
Well,
they
I
had.
was going to
Evolution.
say, it's coming out again. They're going to have a second women's only PLE.
That's
pay-per-view,
awesome.
Now,
sorry.
I'm all for, like the women's pay-per-view. I'm all for headline, like WrestleMania or like anything like that. But I almost feel like if you separate it, kind of like you're talking about, it would kind of be like the NBA and the WNBA, and that they would almost get shortchanged like a little bit. Like, I think like you're kind of like,
I see what you're saying.
I think you're going to weaken your product a little bit, because you're going to kind of separate some of the
That the men
It
are
almost looks
different
like
than
y'all
women.
can't compete. So
fan base or whatever, and I think they would just reabsorb it, because you'd have to have too many, you'd have to have a whole separate production, compared to what you already got, and and I don't think that I can see in the future maybe doing that. Right now, I don't think there's just enough interest in it yet for that to happen. Now, I'm not saying give it 10 years or 5 years that it won't be like that where they would have it, because I mean, it's definitely grown a lot, but not just yet. I think it just needs a little more time on whatever. But I can definitely see it as going towards the future because, like I said, before they were just eye candy, and now they're actually athletes. And sometimes I think some of their matches are better than the men's.
And that's not that they weren't athletes back then. It's just how they were used.
Well, they weren't trained.
They
Like I
weren't.
said,
It wasn't until Sable that it really actually changed.
And even Sable was used too much was used more as eye candy. And I don't mean
True,
to
that's
hate
true.
on
It's very
Sable,
true.
but but Sable wasn't very good in the ring, and it's because it was more about let's
Looks.
get her in a bikini and let her, put on something skimpy and wrestle in it. We'll teach her how to do a power bomb. We'll teach her how to do a couple
DDT or
Yeah.
something, or leg drop, and
Yeah.
we'll throw in a bra and panties match, and
I
we'll
was
call
watching
her
her
there.
power slam some men.
Right, yeah. I mean, Mark Marrow, she did
Yeah.
her husband. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They gave them just enough to get through a match.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why their matches back then always kind of looked
Yeah.
not stiff, but just off.
Yeah.
A second or two off. And that's again because, and I'm glad because I feel like that with like Triple H and this new regime that's coming in, they're not just looking at them as eye candy
Well, I think before,
like Vince did.
Yeah.
I kind of think before, like when it came to the whole, as far as teaching them, like they didn't have, because right now they have like a training center, they have a school, you have a pathway to kind of teach you and show you to be a wrestler. And before it was more just like, okay, I mean, like if you're not pretty, we really don't need you. Like if you can't wear a bathing suit,
Vince never seen a woman main event in WrestleMania.
Right.
But now we realize that, oh look, she can do a backflip, like she can do a moonsault. I mean, some of these finishers that they do, I'm like, oh my god.
Mhm.
She does a better arm drag than half the roster
Yeah.
of men.
So I think now there's just more of an infrastructure as far as where like NXT was the development, and now it's its own league in itself.
The men and women can come out of school on an equal playing
Yes.
field.
Like
as
there's
far
more
as
teachers as far as the teacher.
Yes.
Like I don't think they had that, background. They didn't have teachers like before they do now and stuff. Like you could actually go to school to be a wrestler, like if you wanted to be. When before that wasn't really an option. With women, it was just like, okay, are you pretty? Can you wear a bathing suit? If you can, then we need you. We don't need you to do a DDT. We don't need you to really do a clothesline. If you can, that's cool. But but where do you see maybe the WWE going now? Since like, do you think that Triple H is the person to lead, or do you think that Shane should come back, or do you think Stephanie should be leading as far as? Or do you think, Triple H just got it in hand and he's doing a great job?
Do you want to take this first?
I think Triple H is doing a great job. I think that it's going to do fine without Vince. Not unfortunately, but Vince did his job. You can only do your job for so long.
I mean, they've had the biggest. I think it was the best year. With the last 2 years, were the best 2 years they've had in history. As far as obviously, he kind of knows what he's doing as far as that. Legend, what about you?
Honestly, I'm really torn on this because my entire life, like you said, wrestling has been Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been other co-stars like your Bischoffs, Ted Turners, Paul Heyman's, other people that ran other companies, but like you said, when you think about wrestling, you think about Vince.
I'm interested to see where it will go from here.
I am too.
Without him.
But
without his influence at all.
So
do you really think he's gone though? Do you really?
No, I don't.
No.
There's hints of
because
him creating something new anyway.
Okay, me.
Conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's
I
my
agree.
conspiracy theory for the episode.
Right.
Cue the news anchor
Eerie
music. But I read a story and I cannot find it anywhere anymore. It's gone off the internet. It may not be gone. It just maybe didn't get enough likes or something to get thrown out there enough. Back last year, I want to say around November-ish or so, I seen a story that said that somebody had reapplied for the rights to WCW stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my theory: is that could that be Vince? You know what I mean? Did he sell WWE?
He only sold WWE. There was no.
Well, I don't
of
know because they've
WCW.
got the library though. So, you know what I'm saying?
But that's WWE's property. Like, I don't think Vince can even mess with any of that. That's all TKO now.
Right, but
They own
are
all
the
that.
logos and stuff?
I would say so.
I
yeah.
don't know. I would have
say
to look
all
into
intellectual
that.
property, all videos, all names.
But if you
all-
remember well, yeah, because I just don't know. I would have to look into it more. But it would not surprise me to see Vince come back with something, another promotion, especially now that
who's going to work for him though? I mean, his legacy is going to be tarnished by that.
But like he hasn't made people money.
right.
That's true. Money does
Right.
talk.
Money talks.
But is he going to get out of this? I mean, like,
So
Oh, absolutely.
If the Undertaker has a school and
Everybody
the
does.
Undertaker gets people to graduate, you telling me the Undertaker ain't gonna feed the old man?
Oh, absolutely.
Not even Shawn Michaels because Shawn's working for WWE, but whoever other wrestlers that are
Have
doing
schools.
schools that Vince is still on good terms
but is
with.
Vince? Let's just play devil's advocate and say, he's going to court. Is he facing jail time, or is this just
No, that's all over.
No, yeah, he's been
or like
acquitted
is this
of it.
just fines where we're talking
It's
about?
it's just fines. He's
It was
quitted
just
of
fines.
everything.
Okay.
He just got fined of some I think if I'm not mistaken, please don't quote me on this anybody, but I think it was just like FCC type fines and
yeah.
stuff like that.
But he can't come back to TKO because they probably have like a
no,
morality clause.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's done with TKO.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
I could see
they're
him
not gonna be
bringing
associated.
something else back.
Well, yeah, there's speculation already that he's already in the makes of something.
What if Vince decides to buy AEW from Tony Khan, and then that's the whole point of Shane's been
Being in
showing up
AEW
with
now?
Tony
Yeah.
Khan?
I don't know.
Because
But no
AEW's got the TV, they've got everything there.
They got branding. They got
Their
everything.
branding, everything there. You telling me Vince wouldn't bring? And there's rumor that Vince has hired a production team that knows how to shoot wrestling, which is, I believe, one of his old people he used to have and everything too. So, I
don't
it
know.
would not surprise me to see Vince McMahon
Like I
show
said,
back up in the
Like I
wrestling
wouldn't be
world.
surprised. Like I said,
And it won't be a publicly traded company, so he can do it exactly how he wants to. Attitude Era 2.0, because that'll force WWE to keep up.
the
Yeah.
only thing I would say why that might not happen is because fans pay your bills, and if you have that type of controversy, you're not going to be selling tickets like you should, because
Controversy creates cash.
It
Eric
does.
Bischoff said it.
But who spends the most money? Males spend money, but families spend even more money. Those kids are the ones that put people in the seats. They're the ones that buy the action figures and the T-shirts and shit. And that's where the money's going to come at. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, because Vince can do a lot of shit, and he's made miracles happen.
He's got a lot of money to do a lot of things with, too.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know, because it like if this was the 80s or something like that, or the 90s, I think it wouldn't be an issue. But where we live in a sensitive time where we have a lot of sensitive people, and it's not the same culture that it was before. So I could see cancel culture having a lot to do with shutting that shit down. real
Especially
quick.
with it being Vince.
Yeah, Vince, and you know what I'm saying, especially if it's child trafficking. Like if the whole sex trafficking shit, oh, it's over with. Like it's a wrap, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like you cheating on your wife is one thing. Like nobody gives a shit about that. I mean that's really
It's between you and your wife.
I mean, yeah, that's y'all's business. But when you start pimping people out and like forcing people to do shit,
right.
that changes.
And you start doing fabulous moolah stuff.
Yeah, I mean that changes the game. I mean, completely.
Big time.
So
So what would you say, I guess in closing, overall, what would you say would be Vince McMahon's legacy in your words for good, bad, or ugly?
I think he's Jekyll and Hyde. I think you have to take the good with the bad. I think you can't really separate them. I think as far as wrestling goes, he is the godfather. He created modern wrestling as it is right now. But I think at the same time, he's done a lot of fucked up shit to get there in the process. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. I love what he did for wrestling. I hate what he did to some of these poor individuals. I would say I could separate, I want to say I think I can separate what he did for, wrestling and the other shit. But his legacy will be forever tarnished because of the other stuff. But I think that he is who he kind of portrays. I think there's a lot of Mr. McMahon and Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
Vipers, same question to you. What do you think, for good, bad, or ugly, Vince's legacy overall will be, in your words, in your opinion?
Just iconic.
Psychotic?
Iconic.
Oh, I thought you said psychotic. Did you not think she said psychotic?
I think that's a good assessment too.
Well, this is true. I mean,
Actually,
Jekyll and Hyde.
There's a line between that one too. I mean, but yeah, I don't think that there's going to be another. I don't think anybody could possibly amount up to that. All of the scandal, all of the success, all of that. I feel like that would be hard to like duplicate. Yeah, I really do. I think that it's just something.
So you think it's kind of a 50-50 legacy of...
Yeah, I mean, there's
the
good,
good
there's
with the
bad.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's just as much good as there is bad. I mean, you can say one good thing about them, but then you can also turn the other hand and say something bad.
Right. For every good,
there's a bad.
For me, it's the child in me wants to think of Vince McMahon as the announcer on Saturday mornings. He wasn't the owner, he wasn't anything like that. He was just an announcer that, every now and then because back then they switched the announce team so much with Gorilla and Bobby, and then of course there's Vince and Bobby right there, on Raw. And it's like, that's the way I wish I could remember Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon only. But the sad truth of it is, and for the better of the company, Vince McMahon became that character on TV of Mr. McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also, Mr. McMahon was also the detriment of the company too. Because I believe he started to believe his own hype too much.
Right.
And like you said,
like how long do you
Uncle
play a
Slam,
character before you become that character?
Say again.
How long do you play a character before you become that character?
Right. And just like you said, Uncle Slam, it becomes a part of you and everything. So it was like, did it start to... It was always there.
Mm-hmm.
But did it start to just totally bleed over?
Oh, absolutely.
To where Vince McMahon got swallowed up a little bit, and it was just 90% Mr. McMahon. You know what I'm saying? Even in real life. I want to, like I said, I want to remember him as he was as an announcer, but there's just so much scandal that, like you said,
hard
for
to.
everything good,
There's a bad.
there's so much bad too. And it's like you said, I hope, for one, the ones that are here, I hope the people that he did hurt can get some, like you said, some
Closure.
resolution, some closure. For the ones that he hurt and aren't here, I hate that they got hurt like that, because nobody should ever be hurt like that or made to feel
Mhm.
like that, especially when you love something the way that we love it.
Mhm.
You know, we love wrestling. We've always loved wrestling, you know, and it's just the people, you know, we didn't have the know-how or whatever to go and actually do it. These people did.
Mhm.
And to have their dreams crushed because of something like that is just a horrible thing. And I think that's just going to be a sad cloud that's always going to loom over Vince's legacy.
Yeah.
That, you know, wrestling is as great as it is because of Vince McMahon, but wrestling also has its dark side because of Vince McMahon.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's just the way I look at it, and I hate for it to be like that.
I just want to bring one last point. Like thinking about all the things I've learned about Vince and the Mr. McMahon character, and then Vincent Kennedy. Maybe we have it all backwards. Maybe Mr. McMahon was the real character, and Vincent Kennedy was the guy he was playing.
I mean, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Who knows which
Absolutely.
one was which?
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe we don't know who really he was, when he was really
Yeah.
acting.
Mhm.
Right, because I mean, how many times have you seen him in interviews, especially like when he was talking about Andre the Giant, tear up, start
Mhm.
crying? You know what I'm saying? So that there was a real person inside of there. It's just,
I
why did you suppress it so much to do those things that you did? Is the question that we're never going to know.
No.
It's his business, you know. I just hate that his business hurt other people.
right. It shouldn't have.
No. Nothing you do should ever hurt anybody else. I don't care what people do. Just don't hurt other people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as Vince goes, I love him or hate him. Let us know your comments. I think that's all I've got. Anybody else got anything else?
I'm tapped out.
Guys,
Yeah.
he's tapped out. The referee's asking for the bell. Got any comments or anything? You know where to leave them. Got any suggestions or anything like that? And hopefully soon, guys. I don't know how soon, but we do want to let you know that we are working on trying to get some merchandise out eventually. So just, be patient with us. And until then, ring the bell and we'll see you next time.